Okay, hi, thank you. So we're going to start now. We're joined as we often are with JINSA's Distinguished Fellow, retired IDF General Yaakov Amidror, a former National Security Advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu. We have only one Israeli general this time, so the floor is fully yours, General. So there'll be take as much time you need. So let's start. Let's start with Hezbollah and what's going on in the north. Reports in the last 24 hours, Israel hit a number of targets still in the Beirut area. Meanwhile, Ron Dermer, the Strategic Affairs Minister, was just here in Washington. He also reportedly was in Florida to see President Trump. He was just in, according to reports, he was in Moscow. It seems like partly related to the issue, at least for his official meetings, related to trying to arrange a ceasefire with Hezbollah. How do you assess these events after all this time? I'll just, before I ask you to say, it's now November 14th. Israel has started this, has been at this for almost 2 months, I guess, or about that amount, almost 2 months, maybe 7 weeks or so. There's still more targets for them to hit in Lebanon. How do you see how that war is going? Do you think we're going to have a ceasefire soon? And then we'll talk about, if so, what the terms would be also.
Thank you for the opportunity. As I told you a few months ago, Israel was much better prepared for war in Lebanon than we had been prepared for war in Gaza. If you remember the numbers, I told you that we have 100 times more targets in Lebanon, that if Hezbollah is 10 times stronger than Hamas, we are 20 times better ready for the war in Lebanon. And what happened in the last 2 months is only the example of these capabilities. I mean, in liaison of all the leadership of Hezbollah. There are 2 old guys. One is the head of one of the secret units, have the authority to make operations outside the Levant, mainly in Europe, but all around the world, and he's still alive. And there is another one who was from the old guard of Hezbollah, who was very busy with the criminal smuggling of drugs and so on and so forth in the last few years, and they are bringing him back because they need some people with experience because they don't have. So this is about this part. The other part is the elimination of the long and medium range missiles of Hezbollah. Huge percentage, people are arguing if it was 80%, it was 70%, but somewhere around it. And when we spoke about ability of Hezbollah to launch 3,000 missiles a day, now they reach between 100 and 150. This is the average. I mean, one factor, or more than one factor less. I mean, it's really devastating situation for Hamas, for Hezbollah, and they see what's happening in Gaza and understand that Hamas is out of the equation for eternity, and they understand, and if not, the Iranians are telling them what is the situation of Iran, which was exposed to the Israeli attack, and now it's even more vulnerable than before. So all this together is putting Hezbollah in a very unique situation in which they have very strong interest to finish the war. What's happening is that we are continuing to use our intelligence capability to collect more information and to bomb more targets in Lebanon. We even declared formally something that we hesitated to do in Gaza, for example, that we neutralize most of the abilities of Hezbollah to produce weapon systems inside Lebanon. I told you last time that we made a huge raid of ground forces, special forces into Syria, neutralizing a very important center of production of the Syrians, which was very connected to Hezbollah, providing it with the capabilities. So all in all, the situation of Hezbollah is very problematic. What is happening now in the south, that under the radar, we are continuing to push to the north, very slowly, but we are moving to the second line of settlements of Lebanon. More than 1 million Lebanese had been moved to the north. Huge pressure on the government and on Hezbollah, because everyone understands it is the responsibility of Hezbollah, the defender of Lebanon, cannot fulfill its promises. On the contrary, it led to 1 million refugees inside Lebanon, many of them in churches and other places in which there is a friction with the other sects in many of them, the other sects in Lebanon, because many of the refugees, probably the majority, are Shiites, and many of them are not in Shiite areas in Beirut and north of Beirut. So the situation is calling for a ceasefire from the point of view of Hezbollah. We are ready to have a ceasefire now. After all this achievement, we are ready, but we have two demands which for Hezbollah, it's almost impossible to agree. One, that we will enforce the new situation in the south, not letting any Hezbollah member to go down to the south and not to build even one facility in the south. The agreement will bring in other forces, and even the Americans and the Brits are speaking about their role. The Lebanese army for sure will be based in the south, will go from the north to the south. But we don't trust all this arrangement. With all due respect to all the others, we understand that the only military forces which will be ready to sacrifice and to take risks stopping Hezbollah in the south is the IDF. And we insist that if West come to West and all these arrangements do not work in the future, the IDF will have the right to do it. This is the first demand, which is almost impossible. And there is one which is even more problematic from the point of view of Hezbollah. And it is Israel will have the right to stop any transfer of weapon systems from Syria or other places into Lebanon, and the ability to bomb in Lebanon any attempt by Hezbollah to rebuild its capability. This is signing an agreement in which you are totally capitulate from Hezbollah point of view. But the more time that we have, the more ability that we have to degrade their capabilities. So in a way, they have to find them, to decide between two bad options. One is to continue the war. We are doing it very slow. We are not running anyway. It's okay, slowly, but we are pushing them all the time. The main problem that we are facing, that the IDF need to recruit the reserve forces, and for us it's a huge burden. We don't see yet too many of the reservists which are not coming. The percentage of in the last calling of the reserve unit was 86% percentage of those which had been called came to serve.
And they had over 100% early on.
No, at the beginning of the war, it was between 150 and 120%. I mean, that was even those which left the unit 10 years ago came and say, take us. Now the economic burden is huge. You understand, people who are serving 100 days, what will happen to their businesses and so on and so forth. But anyhow, this is almost the only problem that we are facing, to continue the war in Lebanon slowly. We don't have the momentum of the past, and we don't want to call too many forces, and we degrade them every day. So they have to they have to make a decision. We are ready to make a concession here that it will not be part of the agreement. So it will save their face. They will not have to sign something that everyone will laugh at them at the Arab world. We are ready that it will be a letter from the Americans. And here it is why important that Ron went to both presidents, because for us it's very important that it will be signed by both presidents. Because with one president we are going to war, the one which had been elected almost a month ago. And it is very important that it will be bipartisan. That this commitment of the United States of America to allow Israel to act, to have the legitimacy to act in Lebanon, will be signed by both, will be bipartisan. And this is why people are saying, hey, we are giving something to Trump. No, no, no. It's not something given to Trump. It's our interest that both presidents will sign it. It's very important for us, and I hope that Ron will succeed. There is no one in Israel that can do it better than him. And I hope that he will succeed to convince both the newcoming president and the going president to agree to sign this letter, and then to negotiate with the Lebanese about the agreement with Lebanon. Which is not fait accompli. Even if the prime minister and the head of the parliament are ready to sign it, I'm not sure that Hezbollah, with the backing of the Iranians, which are very much involved now in the broken Hezbollah, will be ready to sign. So this is the situation in Lebanon. It's not easy to fight in the south. We have casualties from time to time. This week we lost 7 warriors, many from Golani. But
there's about 35, I think, since the ground incursion began in Lebanon, something like that. Isn't that right?
I read 45, but
45.
Yeah, but we are ready to pay the price if that will bring security to the north part of Israel and all the refugees. We have 80,000 refugees inside Israel, evacuated from the north, evacuated themselves or evacuated by the government. I believe that if we succeed to push Hezbollah to a line in which they don't have line sight to the communities near the border, and it will be clear that enforcing the agreement will be done by the IDF, and that will bring enough security to the civilians living near the border, and they will come back home.
If I could jump in for a second, General, if I may. First of all, let me remind the audience that Ron Dermer, Minister of Strategic Affairs, was a former JINSA Distinguished Fellow, in between his stints as Ambassador and Minister. We got to make sure that everyone understands that and has a proper background. So let me ask you, if I could jump in here for a second. Let's say they don't work somehow. As you pointed out, General, that Israel has certain demands that are hard for Hezbollah to swallow. So let's say Hezbollah, the status quo continues. There isn't a ceasefire. What does Israel do then? I mean, they'll keep hitting Hezbollah, I understand, but does that mean they're going to control? They're going to seek to control with their own forces a swath of southern Lebanon, south of the Litani? I mean,
Yeah. We have a plan. I mean, everything is ready. We will continue to push Hezbollah to the north, to the Litani, near Metula, in what we are calling the knee of the Litani. That we have to find a solution because it's very close to Metula. But yes, we will continue to clean the area from Hezbollah. We cannot do what we did in Gaza, because Gaza is an enclave. Within it, we can do to move the population and to move from one place to another. Here, the population will go to the north. It will be without civilians in the area. We will destroy every facility which belongs to Hezbollah. when the Shiites will come back, they will see devastating villages, because all the Shiite villages were strongholds of Hezbollah. We find underground tunnels, center of command, huge number of weapon systems. As someone told me, in one village in South Lebanon, there are more anti-tank missiles, 5 times more anti-tank missiles in the whole Gaza Strip. It's huge numbers. We are now considering to take part of it and to build and to give it to one brigade in the IDF, which will use Russian anti-tank missiles, because we have huge number of that, and it is enough for at least one brigade. So it will take time, but we don't rush. I mean, we will do it slowly. The more that we will push, the easier it will be for the civilians to come back. We have to be ready before coming July, because this is the time that people are moving from one place to another in Israel, because it's the beginning of the education year, and people with children don't move in the middle of the year. They move before the summer, because they want to be ready for the 1st of September, which is the beginning of education year in Israel.
Do you find, besides the uptick, these Israeli soldier casualties inside Lebanon, you've obviously continue to have had some missile attacks or rocket attacks from Lebanon, but do you see any change in, let's say, in recent week or 2 weeks on, on how many missiles are coming or drones?
There was here someone says that based on statistics, they are launching less missiles and rockets now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's not significant enough to learn something. If they are doing it, if they did 200 a month ago, and now they are doing 150, I'm not sure that it is significant enough to learn something. But no question that we are succeeding to strip their capabilities by bombing all these centers. And if the IDF claim that the majority of the facilities which had been used for production had been destroyed, it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue here. I mean, that if they cannot produce anything in Lebanon, slowly it will be reduced. It's a big number, but slowly it will be reduced. And if we will be determined enough, and we are, to do whatever is needed to stop any transit of capabilities from Syria into Lebanon, and to show Assad that is paying prices for having these organizations and Iran in Syria. Today we launch in middle of Damascus, a center of Islamic Jihad. I mean, I believe that patience is very important here. Nothing is, one shot and it's ending. The situation of today is that Hezbollah is much weaker than it was at the beginning of the war, that we are continuing to make him weaker in the future every day, and it doesn't have a solution to the supremacy of the IDF when it is coming to targeting and pushing him to the north. And they don't have an answer to the supremacy of the IDF.
Does it surprise you? I mean, I'm just looking at the headlines here in the Times of Israel. The IDF says it hit 30 Hezbollah sites in Beirut, and then Palestinian target. I'll ask you about Damascus in 1 second, but does it surprise you that they have 30 targets to hit in the Beirut area still at this point? Or is it maybe they got new intelligence or something of new sites? Or
the targets that we are attacking are based on what we succeeded to build as legitimate targets before the war. And it was a huge list, really unbelievable number. and what we are learning through the war, because in a war you have an advantage if you have good access, because the enemy must move. You cannot hide and stay somewhere. He has to move. And when people are moving from one place to another, your network of spies is in a better situation to trace them and to allocate them. So we are building targets during the war, using all the assets that we have in Lebanon, and many of them are still alive and very active. And yes, we continue to produce targets. It's not just the target from the past; it's targets from the present.
Let me ask you, talk about targeting. One of the things that we read reports on, they seem very credible, was like leading to the U.S. election last week. The reports that Iran was going to hit Israel, supposedly in retaliation of Israel's retaliation, which seemed to have been maybe more effective than initially understood, had a bigger impact than maybe even the supreme leader of Iran had initially understood. But then they said there's going to be before the U.S. election, or then they wanted to wait till after the U.S. election. Now you don't even read anything about it in recent days that the Iranians are going to do anything. And I know you've said this before, that we've learned that we can't predict the Iranians, that they've done things that are, we didn't foresee. How do you understand this?
I think, and I said it before the elections, that if you remember, I said that the Iranians are in a very bad position now, relating to their ability to retaliate to the retaliation.
Mm-hmm.
Why? First, they understood that the harm that they are doing to Israel, damage in Israel is minimal. There are some areas in which they succeeded to infiltrate and they hit some places, but the damage is very minimal. First, so it is about their capabilities, something that they can learn and can enhance, but they cannot change dramatically. Second, they learn that the Israeli defense system is very effective.
Yeah.
And this is something that Israel can enhance and do better in the future. Because when it is coming to software and making you find some gaps and you cover them, and you can make it better. And this is before the laser and all the other crazy issues. It's about the present capabilities of the defensive systems of Israel. And third, they understand now that Israel can reach any target in Iran, that after the annihilation of the SA-300, even more so now than in the past. And the damage that we can do is very strong and very high. I mean, high from the point of view of quality. We know we have good intelligence to identify what should be taken, and quantity. More than 20 targets, I think, in one night, in 3 hours. And now our situation is even better in some areas, like the elimination of the 3 SA-300. So when you are the leader of Iran and you have all these 4 elements in front of you, and you have new elections in America when a new elected president, if you combine all this together, I am not surprised that he decided to postpone the retaliation. It will take time. They will try to find other ways to do it. Undercover terror actions in Europe, other places, they will try to find, that we had an information that they are in Sri Lanka, there is a team which was rented by the Iranians to kill as many Israelis as possible in the full moon, celebration somewhere in Thailand. I never was there, so I'm not familiar with the place. But I know that many Israelis used to go to the full moon event, and we evacuated many Israelis from there, or at least we told them not to go to this full moon event. And the same was in Sri Lanka. Months ago, we evacuated many Israelis. Why? We identify a specific team which is going to act against Israelis. So they try to organize a terror operation against Israelis to kill as many Israelis as possible. For them, it's question of how you say it, their self determination as a superpower.
Do you see? Oh, sorry. Do you see though in this period, let's say leading up to President-elect Trump becoming president on January 20th? Do you think the Iranians then? Do you see this? What we see today, unless there's a ceasefire, that the current situation will roughly be like this. Some missiles and rockets fired in Israel. Israel continue to clean out Hezbollah. The Iranians waiting is, just going to wait for Trump, or do you think they want to do something before Trump?
No, I believe that the Iranians will be very cautious. They have to make a decision. They need to make it. They understand that their situation is not becoming better by the coming of the new elected president.
Yeah.
They tried to kill him, and he before he even entered to the White House declared that his first act will be to release all the munition to Israel. So, I mean, it is something that they understand. It is not the same world, and it will not be easier for them. I think that the Iranians will be very cautious, and before they will make some changes in their system and they understand that they are less vulnerable than today, they will be very cautious. It's not a good time for them. And remember, the whole strategy of Iran collapsed. The ring of fire does not exist. Hezbollah is not an asset; is a liability. The Hezbollah is now fighting about his existence. It's not something that the Iranians had in mind. That one part of the ring disappeared, Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Another element, the strongest one, is fighting for his existence. Might be eliminated, might be disarmed by the. Think about the situation that a month from now, the Lebanese will be fed up and you will see demonstrations in the street of Beirut against Hezbollah. What Hezbollah will do? They don't have the Iranians now to help them. The Syrians for sure will not intervene to help Hezbollah. And at the same time, Israel will continue to bomb in the Dakhil. What will they do? I mean, they are in a very problematic situation today, very problematic. Will they are ready to capitulate, to give up everything? I'm not sure. It's against their character. They are Shiites. They know to suffer. They know how to get out of crisis. It's a very strong element within the Lebanese society, as stronger as Hezbollah. So I'm not sure that this is so bad that they will be ready to capitulate, but maybe it is the situation. If we are lucky, and the new president will be ready to push pressure on Syria and to play with the Russians in a way in which it will be connected. What you can promise the Russians in Ukraine and what they can help you in the Middle East, and something that will make Assad less cooperative with the Hezbollah, that might make the whole difference. That might make the whole difference.
Let me and I think let's turn to the South for a minute. By the way, I should say you don't see here. I mean, obviously the U.S. has been so focused on the elections, and now President Trump has, been issuing every day, it seems like, new, announcements about who he's going to pick for this and that position. It doesn't seem to have the same media focus right now, the Lebanon war, with Israel, the Hezbollah-Israel war that it had, recently. And even on Gaza. Now, yesterday, I think it was yesterday, it was announced by the administration that Israel is doing enough on the humanitarian aid, allowing enough into Gaza, so they're not going to embargo Israeli weapons deliveries to Israel. And this was something that they gave Israel a deadline of 30 days, and it was signed by Blinken, the Secretary of State, and Austin, the Secretary of Defense, and then leaked. One wonders whether, it might have been done for political reasons before the U.S. election. It was, it's an unusual letter like that signed by two secretaries. And then it seems like, well, Ron Dermer, was here. It seems like they worked things out. They're not going to do that. Now, how do you see what's going on, at least in the north of Gaza, where there seems to have been, more fighting, obviously in recent weeks? And do you see on the north, I know we've asked you this before, there was this controversial plan by several generals in Israel, retired generals, including former National Security Advisor General Island, that basically called for, moving the Palestinians, giving them notice, having them move out of the north, cutting off the aid there, and that was a way to undercut Hamas. So, with all that introduction, how do you see what's going on in the north of Gaza?
First, I think that the Americans are very much exaggerating about the level of humanitarian crisis in Gaza. No one is starving in Gaza. No one is dying because they don't have enough water. They have now, we are connected the Gaza to our electricity, and the medicines, probably in Gaza there are more medicines than in Beirut, because in Beirut the whole system is broken, not because of us, because of Hezbollah. It's not an easy place to live. It's the middle of a battlefield. Yes. We are still fighting. Very bad conditions, but people are not dying because lack of water, food, or medicine. And it will remain very tough place to live because we are fighting. And when you are fighting and the population is out of the fighting area, they don't have the conditions which are needed. Giora asked me about what is my view before we published the plan. And I told him, Giora, if that could be implemented, it's a very good idea, but it cannot be implemented. The world will not let us to have anything which is connecting with the word starving, which was the idea. I mean, if you want. So what we are doing now, we cut with another corridor the north part of Gaza. There is another corridor going east-west, cutting the north part of the North Gaza, and we are now cleaning it totally from every remnant of Hamas. We convince most of the population to leave. They're not going to the south where we want them. Many of them are staying in the north part of Gaza City, but still the area that we are now very active in is almost clean from civilians, and what we are doing is to kill the Hamas which remain there. We need a year to degrade Hamas to the level in which is not relevant as an organization, as a terror organization inside Gaza Strip. Inside Gaza Strip. Today, it's not relevant outside Gaza Strip. When Sinwar was killed, no one asked what will be the consequences. Yes, and what Hamas in Gaza will do, because it's not relevant. They don't have. They have few missiles, rockets. They once in a while they will launch. They will succeed to kill Israeli soldiers inside Gaza Strip, but they cannot make any ground attack on Israel for sure. They cannot make a second 7th of October, and the number of missiles that they have is very, very, very limited, and they cannot produce more missiles inside Gaza. But still, if we want someone to take control of as a substitute to Hamas in Gaza, no third party will enter to Gaza Strip now because he will be immediately killed by Hamas.
Yeah.
So we have to reduce the military capability of Hamas to the level in which third party will not be afraid to come in. It's a very clear test that should be lead to what we are doing. It is not now about Israel. It is about the third party inside the Gaza Strip.
You also, I guess your island was referring to this, the connection between the aid and the Hamas control and so on, but you find with Hamas still having access to a lot of the humanitarian aid because
we know for sure. We know for sure that they have the access to the humanitarian help. They are grabbing it. They are selling it very high price to the people of Gaza. There is a huge complaint against the Hamas inside Gaza. People are speaking first time loudly against Hamas and the fact that Hamas is taking the food. Yeah. They say Israel is helping us and Hamas is killing us. Oh. And it is true that when they meet our soldiers somewhere, immediately they are getting water, whatever they need. The health doctor is taking care for them because we have doctor in every battalion. And Hamas is very determined not to let them to evacuate, and is taking most of the food.
But they also, besides making money on it by selling at high prices, you say, are they using as an inducement also to bring in new Hamas troops? You know, or
yes, but this is for this is good for if someone is counting heads, you know.
Yeah.
They don't have any experience, they don't have training, they are not part of they don't have any system to support them, they don't have any kind of firepower to help them whenever there is a need, they don't have a system in which they are collecting intelligence in one side, bringing the forces from another side. It's isolated teams of 5 to 10 people who are fighting with Kalashnikovs and RPG without any central command. So they're recruiting people for food are ready to do
it. Do you know, these numbers have always bedeviled me, you know, since the war began, how many Hamas forces were killed. Reports said they almost killed, like, if I got this right, was it something like 900 in Jabalia? And then they obviously arrested others. But I wonder, you know, of the 35 to 40,000 that started off in the war, I wonder how many are really left.
The IDF is very, 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 very cautious to publish numbers.
Yeah.
They're ready to say that it is between that it was a month ago between 14 and 17,000.
Yeah.
I think it is closer to 20 because many of them are under buildings which had been destroyed. And out of the 30,000 members, I think the 2/3 had been killed, and 80% of the leadership.
Yeah. Wow. I have one last question, General, and it's not on Hezbollah or Lebanon, but I haven't talked to you since what happened. I don't know if I don't think anybody's asked you this. I just thought I'd ask you about what happened in Amsterdam and what you think. Does it say something about, you know, Europe I mean, there's restrictions about where Israelis are could go about other soccer games in Europe. I mean, restrictions. I mean that the government is encouraging Israel to be careful of where they're going in Europe. And this isn't a new phenomenon, I recognize, but I think what happened in Amsterdam was, I think, shocked many people, obviously in Israel and here and even in Amsterdam. I'm just curious what you take from that.
I met today one of the ambassadors of the most important, one of the most important country in Europe. And at the end, I think it's not our problem, it's European problem. Israel can survive without Israelis going to soccer games in somewhere in Europe. It's good to go, it's very nice, and if we are winning, it's even better. But Israel can survive without it. It's a problem of the European countries in which Muslim immigration is changing the whole culture of some centers in Europe. Some of them are ready to go with the Muslims, like Sweden and other places, and some are not ready. And they understand that this is very problematic for them. For Israel, it's embarrassing. We don't like. We have to. Israelis are traveling all over the world and will be more than happy to go to Amsterdam. But the price will be paid by the Europeans inside. And part of the backlash in Europe is because the Europeans begin to understand that this is their problem. It's not an Israeli problem.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, or a Jewish problem. Obviously, it's not just about that they were hunting Israelis; they were hunting Jews.
Yeah. And you know, here someone asked me what I think, should all the Jews in Europe immigrate to Israel because of what happened in Amsterdam? I said that was my view before what happened in Amsterdam, so I don't need Amsterdam for that.
100%. I think more Israelis should follow what you did this last summer. Come to Montana, come to Wyoming. It's a lot more open space. Certainly very beautiful out in the American West. General, I thank you very much. Unless you have something else you want to add, I got through all my questions. So
yeah, I want to add that I think that here is an historic moment for America to make the difference. If the Americans will find the way to put pressure on the Lebanese and the Syrians, we might have here an agreement which will be a beginning of limiting the capabilities of Iran in the Middle East by limiting the ability of rebuilding Hezbollah.
okay. All right, thank you. And I want to thank you for all your time. I know you were talking straight the whole time, no break. And I appreciate everyone joining us today. And I wish everybody a good rest of the week. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.